Joined with me is Dr. Shivaranjani, a trusted pediatrician, and we're going to be answering all of your doubts, everything from why your child falls sick so often, what are the natural ways to improve their immunity, are they hitting their milestones, is the food they're eating enough. What we hope to achieve with this episode is to give you the clarity and confidence when it comes to your child's health.
Parents need to be empowered with the right first aid and understand that the immune system is going to take time to mature.
Fever, cold, stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, these seem to be common concerns. I know I've watched a lot of your videos on diarrhea and how it's the most common cause for mortality in children under the age of 5.
It is the third leading cause of death in children under 5 age in India. 13% of deaths
Is because of
diarrhea and dehydration. ORS is a drug. It's a medicine. It is 20th century wonder drug. So it has a specific formula with specific osmolarity.
I see different versions of ORS available. What are they?
There is only supposed to be one version, that is WHO recommended formula. If you are giving ORS, it has to be WHO recommended formula ORS, and nobody should be allowed to endorse this as a good rehydrating liquid. It has 5 teaspoons of sugar. That means almost 9 to 10 times the glucose in WHO recommended formula ORS. And the problem is they will go down as diarrhea and deaths. They won't go down as he drank this. That's why the child's condition worsened.
Hi guys, welcome back to Take 20. Joined with me is Dr. Shivaranjani, a trusted pediatrician, and we're going to be answering all of your doubts, everything from why your child falls sick so often, what are the natural ways to improve their immunity, are they hitting their milestones, are they growing well, is the food they're eating enough. Really, what we hope to achieve with this episode is to give you the clarity and confidence when it comes to your child's health. Ma'am, thank you for being here today.
Yes.
More than me, I think my audience is really grateful because all of the questions I'm going to be asking you today comes from them, and there are hundreds of questions. So I'm just going to straight dive into it. The most common question I got was, why does my child fall sick so often? Is it normal?
Yes, it's very normal as the child grows. After 5 years, generally, unless we pediatricians tell them come for a general checkup, they won't come because they fall less sick. The immune system takes time to build up. There is no point searching for some immunoboosters and kind of thing. It will naturally happen. From our side, healthy food, good air, good sun time, good outdoor time, and good sleep, less screen time, and good activity. This is what we can do. And the other thing is, for preventable diseases, we have vaccinations. Okay, so if my child has cold, okay, I'll do this. I'll give some warm. If nose is blocked, I'll put saline drops. If there are too many secretions, I'll use suction to, take those secretions out. If my child is breathing fast, vomiting continuously, I'll go to the hospital. If my child has high fever, I'll go to the hospital. Otherwise, I'll just support him, take care of him, nurse him. That will do. Because unnecessary medication, the side effects will. There are so many instances where for a 3 months of age, mother will, baby's coughing, go to the medical shop, buy the medicine. That will be like 10 times overdose. Baby will go into respiratory depression and be on ventilator. Parents need to be empowered with the right first aid and understand that the immune system is going to take time to mature. Second thing is, do not send your child to school when he or she is sick because you're infecting the other kids. So that kind of social responsibility also needs to come.
At this age, what is a definite no-no you would say parents not do when child falls sick?
Okay, one thing is,
Giving steam directly.
yes, we see many accidental burns because of this. And second thing is giving things like smart eucalyptus oil, camphor oil, making them drink.
Drink?
Yes, it can predispose them to seizures. And inhaling them like too much also can predispose the younger kids and babies to seizures. and buying over-the-counter medications which contain like things like dicyclomine and all, especially below 6 months of age for stomach pain, and giving them to the baby again has many problems and risks associated with it. Mainly just stick to basic first aid, appropriate temperature control, good hydration, be thorough with first aid for seizures and choking. My baby is drowsy, not drinking liquids, breathing fast, very irritable, has, bleeding from the nose or bleeding elsewhere. Go to the hospital. Don't go for over the counter medications. The problem is the parent has to be a little patient. Okay, it will happen 3 to 5 days. My baby will recover. I have to support my baby with basic aid, not overdo it because I may put my baby at risk. See, your baby has some mild fever, you go to the hospital, catch some other infection.
Right,
and come
exactly.
back.
People don't understand when you take your baby to the hospital, you are actually inviting a whole bunch of infections from that place. So, what are your parents doing differently? Can you tell me a few examples of the things that they do differently?
They, every time they are in my room, they are drilled about first aid for choking and seizures. They will attend CPR training.
I'm going to attach those videos of first aid and CPR training for parents to.
Yes. These are all voluntary. I don't do any paid workshops. Only sometimes for raising funds for orphan kids and buying mannequins. Otherwise, all are voluntary workshops. Made aware about how to protect their kids from mosquitoes, how to prevent allergens in the house.
So, when you say prevent allergens, how do I know what is my kid allergic to? How do I clean up my house?
Common allergens indoors are dust mite, most common. Dust mite. It's not dust, dust mite.
Right.
Okay. So it resides in our beds and on our pillow covers. So we tell the parents you wash them in hot water and deep vacuum your house at least once a week, including the curtains. Dust, because there's so much construction activity happening in urban areas.
Right.
Vacuuming regularly. Third thing is getting your air conditioner serviced properly, because aspergillus, the fungus, is another big culprit. And if you have indoor plants, remove those leaves with fungus. And most importantly, we use so many powders, perfumes, household cleaning liquid, bathroom freshener. Those things have to come down. Essential oils, strong scents, and making your child sleep in a room when the mosquito repellent is on, like good night, all out.
So, that's not good for you at all.
No. Everything is about risk and benefit.
So, how do you get rid of mosquitoes?
Yeah, so in urban areas, mainly dengue mosquitoes. So you keep doors closed for 2 hours after sunrise and starting from 2 hours before sunset. And you use mosquito nets. You use your electric bats to kill them. But still you're forced to use liquid vaporizers. Switch on for 2 hours. Switch off. Wait 2 hours. Then take the child to that room. So you have to balance risk and benefit. So we want to protect our child from mosquitoes, but we don't want the negative effects of these vapors. So these are the things. And the other thing is molds.
Molds.
Make sure there are no wet walls. Live simple. Keep your house simple. Let sun inside and keep it dry. That's it. Teach them that.
So, you will reduce allergens, constant cough and cold.
Subsequently, we reduce the risk of adenoids also.
What is
Nowadays, adenoids are tonsils behind the nose. Because of these increased allergies, they are swelling up. So children are having mouth breathing, snoring, and jaw issues. All these things will happen. And breathing, apnea. So breathing will stop in between. That will again negatively affect the child's health. So everything goes like, suppose the baby is on bottle feed. We advise them to stop it by first birthday. We advise them how to do it. So it's not like he's come for vaccine and just do that. Check the growth. And we advise them about nutrition. Teach children about okay touch, not okay touch, phone number, address. You're traveling with your kids means like always, have your kid with name, phone number, put in their pocket somewhere, like, you know.
Right.
So all these kind of things we guide actually.
Fever, cold, stomach pain, vomiting, diarrhea, these seem to be common concerns. I know I've watched a lot of your videos on diarrhea and how it's the most common cause for mortality in children under the age of 5. What is the difference between a simple upset stomach and diarrhea?
Little uneasiness, maybe vomiting and diarrhea. Diarrhea means
Yeah.
you're passing loose stools or stools with more frequency than usual.
Right.
It is the third leading cause of death in children under 5 age in India. 13% of deaths
Is because of
because of diarrhea. When you have diarrhea, you are losing water and salts from your body.
But ORS is available everywhere, right?
Yeah, ORS is a drug. It's a medicine. It is 20th century wonder drug. So it has a specific formula with specific osmolarity. Okay, so there is 75 milliequivalent per liter of sodium, exactly 75 mole per liter of glucose.
Right.
Okay, so they work together, go into the body through the gut and drag water along. That's how they hydrate us.
Okay.
Any excess sugar in the liquid pulls out water into the gut and worsens the diarrhea.
Opposite effect.
Yes. And when you said about ORS, this is what I wanted to say. Give your child only WHO recommended formula ORS to rehydrate your child.
I see different versions of ORS available. What are they?
There is only supposed to be one version, that is WHO recommended formula. Okay. But what's happening is many companies started with ORS-L. ORS-L mainly. What they did was they named it ORS-L. It has 5 teaspoons of sugar. That means almost 9 to 10 times the glucose in WHO recommended formula ORS. And what did I say? If the
Sugar
is more,
pulls out
water.
water.
And the diarrhea was...
Dehydrates.
In fact, it dehydrates, and 13% of children are dying because of diarrhea and dehydration.
And what is the sugar for? 5 teaspoons of sugar, what is it doing?
It is basically a sugar drink, that's all. It's like your Maaza or something like that with little more extra electrolytes.
So this is miscommunication.
Yes, definitely unethical marketing and miscommunication. And it is available in every pharmacy, every hospital, and every infirmary. When people ask for ORS, apple, orange, these pictures will be there. These are handed out to children. Even Indian Academy of Pediatrics unfortunately takes funds from the same company during conferences. For many years I've written to them, but finally I had to come out open. I'm an outlier right now. Okay, so this has to stop. We are playing with the lives of children. If you're giving ORS, it has to be WHO recommended formula ORS. And nobody should be allowed to endorse this as a good rehydrating liquid. I've been writing to the Central Health Ministry, and on 8th April, that's my birthday, 2022, they have issued an order that ORS should not be used on the label of any drink other than WHO recommended formula ORS. But that order was reverted in July, and now they are allowed to sell the same high sugar liquids with a disclaimer, this is not an ORS.
But the name is still ORSL.
Yes. Yes.
I see.
And if you say on the label, it will be in small print, do not give during diarrhea. 13% of children under 5 die because of diarrhea and dehydration. The problem is they will go down as diarrhea deaths. They won't go down as he drank this. That's why the child's condition worsened.
And a lot of parents do not give their child sugar. So,
Yeah, rightly you touched the topic, obesity. And everybody, influencers are marketing them. I'm tired, I'll get this from the fridge and take. 5 teaspoons of sugar per day. The child's sugar intake is done for the day. 6 teaspoons is the upper limit recommended.
With just one Tetra Pak.
This is total unethical marketing. I filed a PIL in Telangana High Court in 2022. 4th hearing is awaited. Supposed to be final hearing. Hoping something will happen.
And because ORS is something we reach for when you're sick to help you feel better, not the other way around.
This is making people more sick.
Right.
So, dear parents, when you want to give ORS to your child, only WHO recommended formula ORS. Read the instructions properly. So if it is 4.1 gram sachet, disperse in 200 ml water. If it's 20.5 gram sachet, disperse in 1 liter water. If it's an infant or toddler, after every loose stool, give around 50 to 100 ml of this solution. You can keep it for 24 hours in your house and then discard it. If it is an older child, you give anywhere from 100 to 200 ml of this solution after each episode of diarrhea. And remember, Tetra packs are there, but sachets are better. And that too, those without flavor. But if you don't get them, then okay, go for Tetra packs. But again, WHO recommended formula ORS only.
I think that was very clear. Thank you for that. I'm going back to the questions from the audience. Rishika says, my child is struggling with chronic constipation. Help.
Chronic constipation nowadays is mostly because of the school timings and the rush. You don't have time. In that half an hour, as a parent, child has no time to sit on the potty seat for more than a minute.
Right, right.
The second thing is, we are keeping houses very clean.
True.
And in schools, they don't have the same situation. So what's happening? Children don't use the washrooms.
Right.
So they hold it. And they are getting constipated. Okay. Third, increase in junk food.
No fiber.
Less fiber and less hydration. Recently, a parent told me teachers don't allow the children to drink water because they are going to use the loo often. How fair is that? You have to respect the biological need of the child. This is the culture picking up. So you don't allow the child to drink water, he'll be dehydrated and constipated. Then he can't constipated. So it's painful. Once it's painful, the child is going to hold it back even more. So a vicious cycle sets in. So we'll have to work on these things. There are rare organic causes. These are functional causes. One consultation with a pediatrician will definitely help, but the most common
Lifestyle.
cause is this functional constipation only. So we'll have to give enough time for the child to empty bowels. We have to work on fiber, hydration, and schools have to have policies where they don't dehydrate the children and maintain washrooms properly. It's for everybody's health and hygiene, isn't it?
I agree.
Yeah.
My 4-year-old is on Miralax daily. He is constipated even if he has even a little bit of chocolate or cake and refuses to get potty trained.
Yeah. Miralax is something like basically I think it's polyethylene glycol only. Trade name is Miralax. So what it does is it's a molecule which pulls water into the gut, softens the bowel,
Right.
and ensure the child has good bowel. But what happens with parents is they're worried that they're giving this for too long. So they abruptly stop. So again, we go back to the starting point. So what I advise parents is when you start this kind of medicines which improve the bulk of the stool and help your child pass the stool normally, continue them for some time as per the pediatrician's advice and taper very, very, very slowly, even if it takes 1 year. These are not very harmful, do not have any side effects. They enter the gut, come out from the gut. And the thing is, the psyche is that parents think, oh, my child is getting habituated to a laxative. But it's not. We have to get him habituated to having a good bowel movement every day.
Once that's regulated, it becomes like
Yes.
routine.
Then we taper this down. We decrease the dependency slowly. So that's how we work on that.
That makes sense, actually. Now, with nutrition and growth, children are picky eaters, and parents are always worried, are they eating enough? Are they eating enough vegetables? Are there enough colors on the plate? How much food is enough?
The child should decide. How much food is enough for you, Sam? Decide
Yeah.
or I will decide for you.
Right. But at that age, what about that age as well?
No.
Yeah?
No, it's just that we have to, it starts from day 0 of life. Once the baby reaches the birth weight, like initially they lose and then they gain. After that, Even before that, it's on-demand feeds, but we don't give a gap of more than 2-3 hours between feeds. After that, it has to be on demand, as much as the baby wants. So that regulation of hunger and fullness should start from there. When we start solids, our job is to focus on quality of food. Quantity, baby will determine. If baby refuses, we stop. Some parents even go to the extent of making the baby lie down and give the
Or
food.
watching the screen and
No,
feeding.
I'm coming to that. So this is like physical force,
Right.
So choking risk is also there. The baby will develop a negative association with food. And now, as you said, screen time or dance in front of the baby, show. Earlier they used to show moon, that is now out. We show phones and toys. Distraction feeding is all force feeding. We want the child to feel, taste, enjoy eating food and say no when he or she is full. If we do it right from the beginning, then definitely you won't end up with picky eaters. And after first birthday, you have to encourage children to self-eat compulsorily. Even prior to that, there are certain concepts called baby-led weaning. I don't want to go into that at this point. But after first birthday, definitely family meal times, baby will decide, eat how much he or she wants. Toddlers will be very active. Just make sure you facilitate. Tell them, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Keep offering. They will eat. Make sure all foods are covered.
When you say all foods, what do you mean?
Fruits, vegetables, protein-rich foods, carb-rich foods. So if this is the plate, we divide it into 2 equal halves. Another line. These are the slightly bigger halves, slightly smaller halves. These 2 are protein and fruit. This is veg carb. Dairy should be less than or equal to 500 ml. We offer and let the toddler decide how much. Encourage self-eating. Initially, they'll throw the food, they'll do this and mess, and they'll do like this.
Right.
But she'll start eating. He'll start eating, enjoying the food. Then you are setting a good trend. These habits they develop will stay for life. So recently also I had an experience with a mother. She was so tense. My child is not eating, my child is not eating. I said, share a video with me when she's eating. First day she threw away the food. Second day she threw away the food. Third day she picked and did this. Fourth day she started eating. Give them chance to touch, feel. Everything is new. It will work.
So the question is, my doctor suggested vitamin gummies for my child. Is this okay?
First of all, a doctor should never suggest gummies. Gummies are sticky, very bad for teeth. Below 6 years, choking hazards.
Right.
Never suggest gummies.
At this age, are
Moreover,
supplements even necessary?
No, that's what.
Right.
Moreover, absorption of vitamins and all from gummies, they are not very reliable.
Exactly.
They are not very reliable. So, as long as you're providing balanced
Whole
diet
food.
to your child, he or she is going to get all the nutrients. If you feel your child is not getting, and temporarily till you are able to get to that point where the child is taking all varieties of food, if you have to give a vitamin supplement, it has to be either a syrup or a chewable tablet if it is slightly older child, but not gummies.
Should we count protein intake daily? How much do they need?
Everything becomes crazy. Did your parents count?
No, definitely not.
So only as long as you provide balance, you will be giving enough of everything.
Of everything.
Yes. Okay. So it will become too taxing and stressful for the mother to count. For one child 1 to 3 years of age, around 13 gram per day, or you can say 1 gram per kg body weight per day.
Right.
Okay. So after that, it's around 19 gram per day. Then 9 to 13 years, it's around 34 gram per day. Adolescents, it's around 50 gram per day. Basic. If you're more active, you're exercising more, you're in sports, you'll need more. But let it not cross 1.8 gram per kg per day, even if it is teenagers. These are the recommendations. As long as they're eating a balanced diet, it will automatically happen.
Right. Our milk mixes and protein powders healthy for kids.
So we'll start with milk
Right,
mixes.
right.
Yes. Milk mixes, what do they have? There's lot of sugar.
All of them have sugar.
Yes. So in the first 5 years, we do not want children to get into flavored milks because the craving will stay forever. So they will always want those sweet things only. That's why we want to inculcate that habit of drinking plain milk. And many of them, like if this sugar will almost make up maybe 3 spoons or 4 spoons for that day. So he wants to eat some small
Fruit or
dessert
even-
anything,
yeah.
then we are done with the sugar for the day.
Right.
And for the teeth, they are very bad.
So parents are thinking calcium and giving these milk mixes, right? And
Milk is already there.
There,
Why
right.
do we need
The
milk
mix.
This is only to make it tasty. They say, okay, we are providing micronutrients. You're eating fruits, vegetables, your nuts given. Of course, children less than 6 years, nuts we can't give them as whole nuts. They have to be powdered. So why give that milk mix? Just to make your child drink milk. Is milk absolutely necessary?
that was my next question. Is milk
No,
absolutely
not
necessary?
No. As long as you're providing protein and calcium through other foods, it's not necessary to give milk to your child.
I've seen a lot of people complain about allergies from milk.
Few people have allergies to milk. Most of the times, what they complain about cough increasing is the sticky nature of the milk. Temporarily, when you give milk, the cough increases. For some, mucus builds up and asthma symptoms may increase, but these are few people. Some people don't react well to guava. That doesn't mean all of us don't eat guava. So milk mixes are not recommended. People started making milk mixes with jaggery, claiming that
Sugar-free.
we are sugar free.
Right.
And then we raised the point. Now they're saying no refined sugar. And again, I'm the villain. Okay, I'm always. And so I kept saying no, jaggery
Is also sugar.
Ah.
People don't get that jaggery is also sugar.
So the parents were deceived for days.
Brown sugar, brown rice. I don't. Yeah, even
Now coming to milk mixes are being promoted like crazy. Pediatricians and gynecologists
Hug.
taking money from companies, endorsing them. And again, I've become the villain because I called them out. So
you become super villain, I think.
I become super villain. I know I'll get blessings from those mothers who realize what is
Aware.
happening.
They want that awareness. You're educating them.
So protein powders, most are okay. Plant-based is not too much available. Whey protein is mostly available, but commercially available whey proteins should not be given till 14 years of age. They are generally considered safe. See, whey protein is protein. Whey protein is easily digestible. Even in formula, we have whey protein.
You're right.
Okay. But why we don't want you to give? Because we want the child to develop the habit of eating food, not drinking food. If I give a chicken piece and if I give whey protein, okay, in milk or which will keep my child full
The chicken.
and the taste, everything. Okay. And second thing is most of the whey proteins available are designed for adults.
Yeah.
So 25 gram or 33 gram
yeah,
no,
25
per
grams, right.
scoop. So because I don't know much, the numbers. So the 25 gram by mistake, if you give to a toddler, without knowing, your toddler cannot cope with that much protein. It will severe constipation, bloating, stomach pain. If possible, I'm a vegetarian. I'm not able to
Give
protein. Okay. So then discuss with the pediatrician and give clean whey protein without added sugars or artificial sweeteners or anything else. And make sure you're not crossing the upper limit for that child.
According to their weight.
Again, as I said, risk versus benefit. When it is not needed, why get your child used to it? When it is needed, give a good one and give the right amount. So what's happening is because of a lot of social media influence, teenagers, what they're doing is they are almost eating, some of them, 2.5 gram per kg. People watching this may ask you, it's not possible in Indian diet. It is very much possible. What they are doing is chicken, 300 gram every meal, and topping it up with whey protein.
Protein is a huge fad. No, it's
Fat.
like
See, protein is necessary, very important, but everything in moderation. Moderation is the key to good health. Kidneys are not fully developed in kids, so you cannot have the same rules for teenagers as for adults. But we have to guide them properly.
right. So how do they know they're achieving the milestones required? Like I had just asked.
Yeah. So basically, every pediatric visit, actually, the way we have framed, like at birth, 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, 2 years, and every 6 months after that, we ask about milestones to the parent. But that doesn't happen in India often. You just write the medication and listen. That's where language delays get missed. Child doesn't walk, parent brings to your notice. Doesn't talk, elders in the family will tell them, no, your brother also talked late, your grandfather also talked late. So these milestones should not be like the child not hugging you. The child is not kissing you at 1 year of age when you say, not looking at you. Or when you point at something, the child is not looking that side. Then you should be alerted. Okay, there is something wrong. This milestone, my child didn't get,
Right.
didn't attain. Okay, so you should bring to the notice of the pediatrician, even if the pediatrician doesn't ask. Ideally, we should ask. We should make a developmental assessment every visit. And the parents, there are many, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, American Academy of Pediatrics, all these have pages for parents. Like for AAP, it's healthychildren.org. So all milestones will be written there. And so they can just check, okay, is my child attaining these milestones or not? So any red flags, they should bring to the pediatrician. It's very easily available. When it comes to growth, we have growth charts, right? So WHO growth charts are there. And for Indians, Indian Academy of Pediatrics growth charts are there. So CDC growth charts are there for mostly the Western population. If your child is tracking well on the growth chart, not below the 3rd centile, not above the 97th centile, but tracking well, means following the same centile nicely. Don't worry, that means your child is growing. We are from different races, families, genes. There's nothing like perfect height or not below 3rd centile or above 97th centile or sudden shift in centile. Definitely that warrants the pediatrician to look into it. Otherwise, if your child is tracking well on growth charts, is active, is eating well, sleeping well, happy, skin is healthy, hair is healthy, teeth are healthy, then your child is healthy.
Perfect.
That's all.
So this speech delay, couple of questions we had. The reason for a speech delay in a 3-year-old, my 4-year-old speaks but only a few words. And I think that a lot of this also, the kids that were babies during COVID and grew up.
With screen. Grew up with
Yes.
it without any social connection.
Is this the connection between this and the speech delay?
Because there's no stimulation, no social contact. It's only screen. Some of these kids respond well to rhymes. They can say A to Z, the numbers. But when it comes to
Communication.
socializing, they can't do it. So whenever your child has delayed milestones in terms of speech, you should bring it to the pediatrician's notice. What are the causes? One is hearing defect. That's why now universal screening of hearing is recommended at birth itself. Okay, so hearing issues. Second is speech pathology. Receptive speech is good. You understand everything that I'm talking to you. But when it comes to expressive speech, there is some delay. We still can work on that. We are like, fine. Third thing is autism spectrum disorder. That has increased now, and there is research to find why it's happening. But what is being said is underlying genetic predispositions, certain genetic mutations are being identified, but more epigenetic alterations starting from what the mother was eating while the baby was in the womb, what chemicals or what harmful radiations the baby was exposed while still in the womb. There's a lot of research going on that pesticides, plastics, all these.
So autism is on the rise?
Yes, definitely.
Is it
One,
because
it is being diagnosed early. Screen times have increased. So maybe the child was not meant to be having autism, but because of the screen time, he's exhibiting certain features of autism. So how do we know? Slowly we wean him off this screen and intervene early. This is called early intervention. So you work on it basically. His behavior is the way you make him listen to you, then obviously he'll learn to talk.
Right.
If I'm constantly looking at the screen, I won't listen, and I will like that zing, 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 zing sounds and high pitched sounds.
Right.
Yeah, normal conversation, I'm not ready. So I wean him off screen, slowly get him into this, and he comes out of the autism spectrum. Then we know he wasn't meant to be in the spectrum. We worked on it, and now he's out of the spectrum. Spectrum is like autism, it's not one level. It can be mild, moderate, severe.
Is it also
So-
because of older parents now?
See, this is very, I mean, you are saying that older parents, then the
You have
ovaries
you're,
may
choo-
be a
yeah, you're
little
choosing to have a
older.
child much later, and
Yeah. So
as
I
a
don't
result,
think I should comment on that at
Right.
this point because there is no
conclusive evidence.
evidence.
Okay.
So, but the main thing is vaccines are being made the villains, and they are saying that they are causing autism. The world has changed so much, so much. Junk food, pollution, plastics, pesticides are coming into our system through every possible source. Okay. Parallelly, vaccinations have increased, but vaccines have saved so many lives. This is a total misconception, and this, if more and more parents stop giving because of
Vaccinations,
this fear mongering,
it's going to come back again in full
will go
force.
back. And you know of the measles outbreak in
yeah.
US where many children died also, right?
Yeah. Right now, vaccination even in the US is the hottest topic, right?
I know.
So early onset puberty is pretty scary, pretty alarming. How early it has.
Yeah. There has been a shift. The definition of precocious puberty has changed in girls. If they attain puberty before 8 years, so it's considered precocious puberty. So some children are getting their
Menarche.
first period by 9.5, 10 years. They're not ready. Their peers will be like this with no breasts or anything.
And
And
then
these
suddenly-
children will be like, they'll feel very awkward also. They're not mentally ready, emotionally ready for
Parents
all this.
also must not be ready, right?
Ready. So that is another aspect we need to look into. Many have stopped drinking milk because they're worried it will cause precocious puberty, right? But
Chicken, like they're all
everything.
they're thinking that
yeah. So here I've done some research, and beta somatotropin is the hormone, and some amount of oxytocin is given to cows and buffaloes to enhance milk production. Some say estrogens are given, but to my knowledge, whatever research I have done, this is the hormone. And this hormone is not absorbed into the gut. Oxytocin may be responsible, but I'm not sure about that. Somatotropin is not absorbed into the gut of the child, and it's not going to do
So what do you
anything.
think is the reason for early onset?
Yeah, pesticides reaching the child through them is proposed as a bigger factor, more important factor. But pesticides reach us through all foods now, right?
Yeah.
And that's why what I tell parents is don't restrict any food, either milk. So milk is not the only culprit. These pesticides are reaching us from everywhere. So do not compromise on the nutrition of the child, thinking that by stopping milk, you will stop precocious puberty. Okay, try as much as possible, if it is feasible for you, to get organic food, and if not feasible, at least wash your vegetables thoroughly so that at least you wash away the pesticides. And other factors are plastics, PPA, flame retardants, body creams, parabens, and all. So these
Phthalates
are
and-
non-stick cookware. All these are also apparently causing endocrine disruption, hormonal dysregulation. And phytoestrogens in soya have been studied, but evidence is not strong. Occasional tofu or soya is not going to really be of much of a problem.
Right.
Okay, so as I said, moderation. Don't overdo, don't deprive yourself of anything, then we are good. If your child is having precocious puberty, please do meet a qualified endocrinologist because this precocious puberty, what we discussed so far is just early onset of the physiological thing. But there are certain causes like tumors of the pituitary, tumors in the ovary, adrenal, which can cause precocity.
Oh.
Okay, so always consult. Make sure your child doesn't have any major problem which needs to be addressed. Okay, even thyroid related issues can cause. So that's why please meet an endocrinologist. Make sure all these conditions are ruled out. Understand that it is only an early onset of the natural process. If your child is not ready, there are ways to postpone it. The injections are not harmful. Discuss with your child and the endocrinologist. You don't postpone the periods. Your child stops growing at 4-6 or 4-7, and later you want to do something.
How can you postpone this? You said
You give something called GnRH analogs. So what they do is they go and control the pituitary. They go and tell it, boss, I'm already there. You don't secrete any more hormones. Not exactly.
So it's a one-time thing.
Not exactly pituitary. There are certain things above it. They inform the system in our brain that, okay, we are there already in the body. You don't secrete hormones which are necessary for puberty. Stay
So
quiet.
it's a one-time thing.
No, it will be once a month or once in 3 months.
Okay.
So
You can
yeah,
actually postpone early
Yes,
onset
yes,
puberty.
yes.
This is something you need to discuss with your doctor.
Yeah, you should discuss. If there's any treatable cause, treat it. If it is only the physiological thing which is occurring early, you can postpone, but that has to be, see risk to benefit again. Does my child need those injections? Is she ready for everything? Height
Right.
is also okay, fine. Okay, then we won't do it. So you have to discuss.
Very interesting. How important are vaccinations? Everyone is now questioning vaccinations. And even I'm not so sure because there's so much information. Does a child need so many vaccinations? Am I harming the child? It's really confusing to
You
me
know
right
about
now.
smallpox?
Yeah.
How many people died? So
Yes.
many people. Been eradicated? How?
Vaccines.
Have you seen any person with polio? No. Lifelong disability, right?
Right.
Now you don't see polio.
Right.
How?
Vaccine.
Vaccine. Are you seeing children developing chronic brain issues? Subacute sclerosing panencephalitis, it's called. Due to measles now, no child is developing. Pneumonias have come down in India. Otherwise, lower socioeconomic status. So many kids used to get admitted with pneumonia, ventilation and all. It has come down. Why?
But are so many vaccines necessary?
That parent can take an informed decision. No, you discuss. So tetanus, suppose I get, and you have to ventilate me. You don't know when I'll come out of it. Even newborns used to have tetanus. Now do you see tetanus? No. People are living longer. Deaths because of all these infections have come down. Discuss the risk to benefit ratio with the doctor. Do I want my child to get polio? No. Give the vaccine. Do I want my child to get tetanus? No. I have to give the vaccine. Okay, now typhoid, how do we get it? Through contaminated water or so, right? And we have medicines for it. But still, typhoid is like, you get very high fever and affect any part of your body. Discuss with the pediatrician. I'll make sure my child is safe, hygienic food and all that. I don't want to give typhoid vaccine. Discuss and take an informed decision. That's about it.
Yeah, and it also helps, like, doctors like you who come on these podcasts and who gives out so much valuable information. It's available to every parent, if they choose to educate themselves.
Yes, exactly. Educate yourself and take an informed decision. Don't go blindly. Trust your instincts and be empowered with the right knowledge from the right sources. Be thorough with knowledge about parenting, accident prevention, CPR. Communicate well with your child. Encourage your child to communicate with you. Listen to your child. Put yourself in your child's shoes when you guide your child or talk to your child. Remember, you can't be autocratic. Your child is an independent individual. Let your child grow to be a good individual. For that, you have to be good, and your child is going to emulate you. Remember.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doc. Is there anything we've left out you'd like to add? If there's
About
anything,
the first aid and CPR.
I'm going to include your video in
Yes.
this.
Recently, a mom reached out to me through Insta, DMs. Sometimes I see, sometimes I miss. Luckily, I saw. Unfortunately, she lost her child to a choking accident. 16 months baby.
Did not know what to do.
She said, I glanced through your video, so I patted on the back. Maybe I should have trained myself, but I don't want any other parent to go through this. I want you to reach my story to other parents. Once you are there, your video will go everywhere. Are you comfortable with that? At least wear a mask and do it. She shared a video saying, parents, please learn first aid and prevent choking. Do not give hard foods, sticky things and gummies to
Right.
your children. I shared that video and first aid for choking. I want all parents to learn first aid for choking, prevent choking. And in India, for seizures, they keep keys in the hand, they throw water and all
Right.
that. That is nonsense. It's not going to help. And let me tell you, there was an incident in Hyderabad where the person lost his eye because he poked his eye with the key. There is no role for keeping key in the hand. When anybody is having a seizure, just make sure they don't injure themselves. So you keep pillow or some soft cushion, and then after that, if anything is there in the mouth, remove it so that the person doesn't choke on it, and turn the person to the side. After verifying whether the person is breathing. If not breathing, we have to give CPR. This is what you need to follow.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Sam. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.